Hey, seventh graders. Today we're looking at multiplying rational numbers. All right. So a rational number is anything that can be written as a fraction. So maybe it's a decimal that we could convert to a fraction, or it is just a fraction itself. So our rules for multiplying are still the same as we've done before. It's just now we're dealing with some numbers that are a little bit more difficult. So, as I said earlier, multiplying rational numbers means we're multiplying as fractions or as decimals. We can use either one. Okay, so if we have decimals, we could change them to fractions to multiply. If we have fractions, we could change them to decimals to multiply. It's just, we're going to want to make sure that we're multiplying fractions times fractions or decimals times decimals. We don't want to switch back and forth. Okay. The only thing we have to make sure we're doing is if we're multiplying things, guys, I think it makes your life much easier if we get rid of anything that's a mixed number. So, for example, if I had something like 2 and 1/2, okay, I could convert this to 2.5 as a decimal, right? Or if I wanted to leave it as a fraction, I would write it as an improper fraction, right? So 2 times 2 would be 4, plus 1 would be 5, and I'd end up with 5 over 2. Okay? So that's really our only rule for today. So let's look at some examples. Multiplying rational numbers, so here we're dealing with fractions. I have a fraction times a fraction, might as well just leave them as is and multiply them together. Okay? So notice right away I have a negative number times a positive number, and we know that negative times positive is going to give me a negative number. All right, and now from there I'm just going to work with my fractions the way I normally would, the way I normally multiply. And again, when we multiply fractions, we're going to multiply the top numbers together. So I'm going to take 4 times 2, and then we also multiply the bottom numbers together, which is 5 times 3. Okay, so in this case, I would have be negative 8 over 5 times 3 is 15. Once again, I always want to reduce my fractions, so I want to see if there's any number that divides into 8 that also divides into 15. Nothing other than 1, so that's my final answer. All right, we'll look at one more with fractions here. If you're feeling confident, go ahead and pause your video and try this one on your own. All right, so the first thing, let's look at what we're multiplying. I have a positive number times a negative, so I know my answer is going to be negative. Okay, and then I also need to convert my stuff to a mixed number. So 4.5 is the same as 9/2. Negative 2 1/3 is the same as, well, 7/3. Okay, and then, like I said, my answer is going to be negative, so I got my negative out in front. All right. Now I multiply my tops together and bottoms together, but before we can do that, we know that if we have a factor that's the same on the top and the bottom, we can cancel those. So I noticed that 3 down here and 9 share a factor of 3. So if I take a 3 out of each of those, all right, this 3 cancels, and my 9 would become just a 3. So now to get my top number, I'm taking 3 times 7, which is 21. And to get my bottom number, again, when I take some out, that was a 1, so 2 times 1 is 2. So negative 21 over 2 is my solution. All right, look at the decimals now, okay? So how we can do decimals, again, we could convert them to fractions, but let's just get some practice multiplying decimals. So when I multiply two numbers together, right, I know that I can stack them, so 2.5 and 3.6, okay? I'm multiplying these together. So I start with my 6 down here, and I'm going to multiply it times everything up top, right? So 6 times 5 would be 30, so I put the 0 down, carry the 3. 6 times 2 is 12, plus 3 makes 15. Now I'm going to move on to my 3 here and multiply that by 5 and 2. So I'm going to put my 0 for a placeholder. 3 times 5 is 15, carry the 1 up here. 3 times 2 is 6, plus the 1 I put up there is a 7. Okay, now I'm going to add this stuff together. All right, so I have that, and then now with multiplication, I have to count how many decimal spots did I have. I had 1 and 2. So for my answer, that means I need to move my decimals 2 spots. So I ended up with 9 for my answer. Now hold up, we're not done yet. Look at our signs. I had a negative times a positive. It's going to give me a negative. So my number is negative 9. All right, go ahead and pause your video and see if you can come up with this one on your own. All right, I came up with negative 1.274. And you can look at the work that I have there. So again, at the end, I needed to go 1, 2, 3 decimals because I had 1, 2, 3 spots. Last ones here, I just have choice. So again, same way, you can either convert them to decimals or fractions. I'm going to go ahead and convert this one to a fraction, just so we can get a little bit of practice here. So I have negative 6.3 would be negative 6 and 3/10. Okay. And then the other one is negative 0.6. So this would be negative 6/10. Okay. Negative times a negative is going to give me a positive. I know that. And then our other rule we said with fractions, let's convert them all to from mixed numbers to improper fractions. So this would be 60 plus 3, so 63/10. And then times, I already have this one here, 6/10. Okay. So if I multiply these together, let's see, 6 times 60 would be 360. 3 times 6 would be 18. So this would be 378 over 100. All right, now do they have anything in common? I can take a 2 out of each of those. So if I take a 2 out of each of those, I would end up with, let's see, that would be 189 over 50. And that should be my final answer.